Commander Taman stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. Something was wrong, very wrong. He had been working as a cartographer for the Galactic Institute for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like this before. The star map showed thousands of systems, trade routes, and territories belonging to different alien species across the galaxy. Everything looked normal until his eyes reached the outer rim. There, where a large section of space should be mapped and labeled, there was nothing, not empty space, not unexplored territory, just nothing. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again. The void was still there. Dashman pulled up older maps from the Institute's database. The same blank space appeared on every single one, going back decades. How was this possible? The Velthari had been mapping the galaxy for over 300 years. They were the best cartographers in known space. Every major civilization relied on their maps for trade and exploration. Yet here was a massive chunk of the galaxy that simply did not exist on any official chart. He zoomed in on the edge of the void. The border was perfectly smooth, as if someone had taken a knife and cut out a piece of the galaxy. Trade routes curved around it. Diplomatic channels avoided it completely. Even the paths of comets and asteroids seemed to bend away from this region. Dashman checked the raw sensor data from deep space monitoring stations. The readings were strange. Energy signatures, gravitational fields, and stellar radiation all showed normal patterns, then suddenly stopped at an invisible line. Beyond that line, the sensors recorded nothing at all. He stood up from his chair and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the capital city of Velthara stretched toward the horizon. Flying vehicles moved between tall crystal towers that reached into the cloudy sky. This was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, yet they had a giant hole in their most important maps. The door to his office chimed. Admiral Kyung-soo entered without waiting for permission. The older Velthari moved slowly, his long silver hair tied back in the traditional style of their people. His face showed the lines of someone who had seen too much. "Commander Taman," the admiral said, his voice quiet but firm. "I heard you were looking at the outer rim charts." Taman turned away from the window. "Yes, sir. I found something unusual. There appears to be an error in our mapping system. A large section of space is completely blank." Admiral Kyung-soo walked over to the holographic display. He looked at the void for a long moment, then sighed. "That is not an error, Commander." "Sir?" "Sit down, Taman." They both sat. The admiral leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Very few people in the Institute know about this." Taman felt his heart rate increase. In all his years of service, he had never been involved in anything classified. "That region of space," the admiral continued, "is marked as Forbidden's territory. We call it the Silent Zone. Forbidden by whom? By order of the Galactic Council. The ruling was made 200 years ago after the incident." "What incident?" Admiral Kyung-soo opened his eyes and looked directly at Taman. 2 centuries ago, our long-range sensors detected signs of advanced civilization in that region. The energy signatures were unlike anything we had ever seen. The technology appeared to be far beyond even our capabilities. Taman leaned forward. This was fascinating. "What happened next?" The council decided to make contact. They sent a joint expedition with ships from 5 major civilizations. The Zephyrian Empire contributed their finest battleships. The Crystalline Confederacy sent their best diplomats. We provided the navigation expertise. Everyone wanted to meet this new species. And the expedition reached the border of that region and transmitted standard first contact protocols. They sent greetings in over 50 languages. They offered gifts, trade agreements, and peaceful dialogue. Admiral Kyung-soo paused. The silence stretched between them. "What was the response?" Taman asked. "Nothing. Complete silence." The expedition waited for weeks at the border, sending message after message. No reply ever came. Maybe the aliens were not ready for contact? That is what the expedition leader thought. So they waited longer. Months passed. Still nothing. Finally, they decided to cross the border and investigate. Taemin realized his hands were gripping the arms of his chair. What did they find? We do not know. The moment the expedition crossed into that region, all communication stopped. No signals, no emergency beacons, nothing. It was as if they had simply vanished. The ships were destroyed? Unknown. Search and rescue missions were organized, but none were allowed to cross the border. The few long-range scans that could penetrate the region showed no debris, no wreckage, nothing to indicate a battle had taken place. Taemin stared at the holographic map. The void suddenly seemed much more ominous. Who lives there now? According to our most recent intelligence, the species calls themselves humans. They control that entire region of space, but they have never attempted to expand beyond their borders. They do not trade with other civilizations. They do not send diplomatic messages. They do not respond to any attempts at communication. For 200 years, exactly, complete silence. The Galactic Council eventually classified the entire region as a no-contact zone. All official maps were ordered to show it as empty space. Trade routes were rerouted. It became forbidden to even acknowledge their existence in public. Taemin looked at the smooth edge of the void again. But they are still there? Oh yes. Our monitoring stations along the border detect massive energy. Readings from deep within human space. Whatever they are doing in there, it requires enormous of power. Some of our scientists believe they are building something. Others think they are preparing for war. War against whom? Admiral Kyung-soo stood up. That is the question that keeps many of us awake at night, Commander. A species that can make entire fleets vanish without a trace, that ignores all attempts at communication, that remains hidden behind their borders for 2 centuries. What are they planning? What are they building? And why do they refuse to speak? To the rest of the galaxy? The Admiral walked toward the door, then stopped. This conversation never happened, Commander. You will return to your normal duties and forget about the silent zone. Some discoveries are better left alone. After the Admiral left, Taemin continued to stare at the map. The void seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. Somewhere in that empty space lived an entire civilization that the galaxy pretended did not exist. Humans, the name felt strange in his mind. He thought about the missing expedition. Hundreds of trained diplomats, soldiers, and scientists simply gone. What could make experienced crews disappear so completely? What kind of technology could hide an entire region of space from the most advanced sensors in the galaxy? Taemin made a decision that would change everything. He began planning an unauthorized expedition into the Silent Zone. He had to know the truth about what lay beyond the edge of the map. He had to find out why silence was the only response from human space. The galaxy deserved answers, even if it meant breaking every rule in the book. 3 weeks later, Taemin stood in the cargo bay of a small research vessel called the Starfinder. He had managed to gather a crew of 3 other Velthari who were curious enough to risk their careers for answers. Each of them had their own reasons for joining this dangerous mission. Dr. So Young was a xenobiologist who had spent her life studying alien species. She wanted to be the first to make contact with humans and learn about their biology. Engineer Woo Jin was frustrated with the limits placed on Velthari technology. He hoped to discover new engineering principles from human science. Navigator. Hey, one was simply bored with safe, mapped routes and craved real adventure. They had stolen the research vessel during a shift change at the orbital shipyard. The ship was small but fast, with advanced sensors and enough supplies for several months. More importantly, it was not equipped with the tracking devices that larger vessels carried. Communications are down, Hae-Won reported from the pilot. Seat, we lost contact with the Institute 10 minutes ago. Taemin nodded. This was expected. According to the old records, all long-range communications stopped working once ships entered the silent zone. They were now truly alone. Sensors are picking up something ahead, So Young said, studying her readings. Metal structures, but they look abandoned. Through the main viewport, they could see a collection of dark objects floating in space. As they moved closer, the objects resolved into artificial structures. Dozens of monitoring stations from different alien civilizations hung motionless in the void. "Look at this," Wu Jin said, pointing at his engineering display. "Those stations are from the Crystalline Confederacy, the Zephyrian Empire, the Trade Federation, even some I do not recognize. They are all pointing in the same direction. Toward human space." Taemin realized they docked with the nearest station, which bore the markings of the Zephyrian Empire. The airlock opened with a hiss and they stepped inside. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. The station was completely empty, but everything looked intact. "No signs of struggle," So Young observed, scanning with her medical equipment. "No bodies, no blood, nothing to indicate violence." Wu Jin found the station's main computer and managed to activate it. The logs show this station was monitoring human territory for over 50 years. The crew filed regular reports until 3 months ago, then nothing. "What was in the last report?" Taemin asked. "Increased energy readings from human space." The crew noted unusual patterns in their sensors, then requested permission to investigate more closely. That was their final entry. They searched several more monitoring stations and found the same pattern. Crews from different species, all watching human space for years or even decades, all suddenly gone within the past few months. Their equipment was undamaged, their stations were fully operational, but the people had simply vanished. At the 7th station, they made a disturbing discovery. This one belonged to an unknown species and was much older than the others. Ancient. Warning beacons floated around it, broadcasting messages in dozens of alien languages. Haewon translated the signals. "They all say the same thing. Turn back. They are watching. Do not approach the silent ones." "Silent ones," So Young repeated. "That must mean the humans. How old are these warnings?" Taemin asked. Wu Jin checked the beacon technology. "At least 200 years. Maybe older." These warnings were placed here right after the first contact incident. They continued deeper into the silent zone. The space around them looked normal, but their instruments detected strange energy patterns. Gravity fields shifted in ways that made no scientific sense. Electromagnetic readings fluctuated without any visible source. "It is like the entire region is being watched," Haewon said nervously. "I keep feeling like something is tracking our movement." On the 3rd day, they found something that made them all stop talking. A massive Zephyrian battleship floated dead in space. The ship was intact, showing no damage from weapons or accidents. Its lights were off, and it gave no response to their signals. "That is the Z's Dominator," Taemin said, reading the ship's identification markings. "It was the flagship of the original expedition 200 years ago." They boarded the enormous vessel through an emergency airlock. The ship's interior was pristine, as if the crew had simply walked away moments ago. In the captain's quarters, they found personal belongings still arranged on shelves. The mess hall had plates of food that had long since rotted away, but there were no people anywhere. Wu Jin accessed the ship's computer systems. "The logs are still here." The expedition reached the border of human space and sent standard first contact messages. They waited for weeks with no response. "Then what happened?" So Young asked. "According to this, they detected a small human vessel approaching." The captain was excited about finally making contact. He ordered all weapons powered down and prepared a formal greeting. Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. And then the log entries become strange after that. The captain writes about how impressed he was with human politeness and intelligence. He says the humans offered to show them something amazing. The crew seemed eager to accept the invitation. "That does not sound threatening," Haewon said. "No," Wu Jin agreed, "but look at the dates. These entries continue for months after the expedition was declared missing." The captain writes about wonderful discoveries and new friendships with humans, but there are no other crew reports. No routine duty logs, nothing from anyone else on the ship. So Young checked her medical scanner again. There is no evidence that anyone died here. No remains, no signs of disease or violence. It is as if hundreds of people just decided to leave their ship and never come back. They searched more abandoned vessels over the next few days. Each one told the same story. Crews would make contact with humans, become excited about some offer or invitation, then disappear completely. Their ships were left behind, perfectly preserved but empty. Where did they all go? Hey, one whispered as they explored yet another derelict vessel. Tay-Min was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans were not destroying the ships that entered their territory. They were not killing the crews. They were taking them somewhere, but where and why? On their 7th day in the silent zone, their sensors detected something new. A faint signal was coming from deeper in human space. It was not a distress call or a warning. It sounded almost like music. Should we investigate? Hey, one asked. Tay-Min looked at his crew. They had come this far to find answers. The abandoned ships and monitoring stations had only given them more questions. The signal might be their only chance to learn the truth about what happened to all those missing people. Set course for the signal source, he ordered. We need to know what the humans are really doing out here. As their ship moved deeper into human territory, none of them noticed the small probe that had been following them since they entered the silent zone. The Starfinder came to a sudden stop. Tay-Min felt his stomach lurch as artificial gravity fluctuated. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. What is happening? He called out, rushing to the bridge. Hey, one was frantically working at her controls. I cannot move the ship. Something is holding us in place. Through the main viewport, they could see nothing but empty space. Yet their engines were running at full power, and they were not moving at all. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed their vessel. Energy readings are off the scale, Wu Jin reported. There is some kind of field around us, but I cannot identify the technology, So Young pointed out the window. Look there, space began to shimmer in front of them. The stars wavered like heat rising from hot ground. Then, without any sound or flash of light, a massive ship appeared where nothing had been moments before. The human vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their small research ship. Its hull was smooth and dark with no visible weapons or engines. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface like flowing water. How did they hide something that big? Ujin whispered. Before anyone could answer, a new voice filled their bridge. It spoke in perfect Velthari, with no accent or strange pronunciation. Greetings, explorers from the Galactic Institute. I am Admiral Boram of the Human Defense Fleet. Please do not be alarmed. You are safe, but you have entered restricted space, Tay-Min found his voice. Admiral, we come in peace. We are researchers seeking to understand why your people do not communicate with the galaxy. We know who you are, Commander Tay-Min. We have been monitoring your journey since you entered our territory. We also know about your unauthorized mission and your crew's backgrounds. So Young looked shocked. How could they know all that? We have been watching your civilization for a very long time, the Admiral continued. Please prepare to be brought aboard our vessel. There is much you need to see before you can understand the truth. A beam of soft blue light surrounded the Starfinder. Tay-Min felt the strange sensation of being lifted, though gravity remained normal inside their ship. Through the viewport he watched as they were gently pulled into a massive docking bay. Inside the human vessel, the docking bay was huge, filled with ships from dozens of different alien species. Tay-Min recognized vessels from the Zephyrian Empire, the Crystalline Confederacy, and many others. All the missing ships were here, perfectly maintained and arranged in neat rows. The missing expeditions? Hey, one breathed as they stepped off. Their ship, they were met by a group of humans. Admiral Bioram was a woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons. Behind her stood Captain Dong Hyan, a tall man with a calm smile, and Dr. Yunji, a young woman carrying what looked like a medical scanner. Welcome to the human ship Harmony, Admiral Bioram said. I know you have many questions. We will answer them all, but first, would you like to see your missing colleagues? She led them through corridors that seemed to pulse with gentle light. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch. Everything felt organic, as if the ship were alive rather than built from metal and circuits. They entered a large common area, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Taman saw Zephyrian warriors playing games with crystalline diplomats. Trade Federation merchants were sharing meals with species he did not recognize. Everyone looked healthy and happy. "Commander." "Veltar?" So Young called out. A Zephyrian officer turned toward them. It was Commander Veltar, who had led the original expedition 200 years ago. He looked exactly the same as he had in the old military records, not a day older. "Dr. So Young," Veltar said with genuine warmth. "I heard you might be coming. Welcome to the real first contact." "You have been missing for 2 centuries, Taman said. "Your people think you are dead." "Not missing," Veltar replied. "Learning. The humans offered us something incredible, and we chose to stay and help them prepare." "Prepare for what?" Dr. Yunji stepped forward. "Perhaps I can explain. My specialty is xenopsychology, understanding how different species think and behave. When your people first contacted us 200 years ago, we faced a difficult decision." She gestured for them to sit at a nearby table. Other aliens gathered around to listen, their faces showing interest rather than fear. "Your civilizations came to us with the assumption that we were primitive," Dr. Yunji continued. "The Zephyrian Empire expected us to submit to their authority. The Trade Federation wanted to exploit our resources. Others planned to study us like animals." "But that is normal first contact protocol," Taman protested. "Normal for your galaxy, yes. But humans think differently? We do not believe in conquest or exploitation. When we saw the way your people approached us, we realized the galaxy was not ready for true cooperation." Captain Dong Hyan joined the conversation. "We could have destroyed those first fleets easily. Our technology is far beyond anything your civilizations possess. But destruction creates fear and hatred. Instead, we offered them a choice." "What choice?" one asked. "To see what real cooperation could achieve," Admiral Boom said. "We showed them our society, our technology, our way of life. We demonstrated what becomes possible when different species work together as equals rather than competing for dominance." Commander Veltar nodded enthusiastically. "They showed us cities where former enemies live in peace. Technology that can heal any disease, feed any population, solve any problem. They offered to share it all, but only if we agreed to help them prepare the galaxy." "Prepare it for what?" Taman repeated. Dr. Yunji activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy from a vast distance, but beyond the galactic rim, something dark was approaching. The image was blurry, but it looked like a massive fleet of unknown ships. 50,000 years ago, a race called the Devourers swept through this galaxy, she explained. They consumed entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Humanity's ancestors fought them and won, but at a terrible cost. Our people were scattered, nearly extinct. We have been rebuilding ever since, Captain Dong Hyam added, watching the galaxy grow and develop new species. But the Devourers are returning. Our long-range sensors detected them 500 years ago. Why did you not warn the galaxy? So Young asked. Would they have believed us? Admiral Bioram replied. A mysterious species claiming that ancient monsters were coming to destroy everyone? Your civilizations would have assumed we were lying to gain power over them. Commander Veltar leaned forward. So the humans developed a different plan. They would wait for representatives from each civilization to find them. When those people saw the truth, they could choose to help prepare a defense or return home with their memories altered. You erase memories? Taemin felt alarmed. Only if requested, Dr. Yunji said gently. Many people choose to forget rather than carry the burden of knowing about the coming threat. Others, like Commander Veltar and his crew, decide to stay and help us get ready. Ready for what exactly? To unite the galaxy? Admiral Bioram said. Simply, the Devourers can only be stopped if every civilization works together. Not as allies of convenience, but as true partners sharing knowledge and resources. Taman looked around at the mixed groups of aliens, all working together peacefully. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. In normal galactic society, different. Species barely tolerated each other. How long do we have? He asked. Based on our calculations, the Devourers will reach the outer systems in less than 50 years, Captain Dong Hyen replied. And you think you can unite the entire galaxy in that time? Admiral Beoram smiled. Commander Taman, you and your crew are about to become the first official ambassadors between humanity and the galactic community. The silence is about to end. Admiral Beoram led Taman and his crew through a portal that shimmered like liquid light. When they stepped through, they found themselves standing on the surface of a planet that should not exist. The sky was a soft purple color, filled with floating islands connected by bridges of pure energy. Cities covered these islands, but unlike any cities Taman had ever seen. Buildings grew like living trees, their walls transparent and flowing. Gardens floated in mid-air, tended by robots that moved like graceful dancers. Welcome to New Terra, Admiral Beoram said. This is one of our garden worlds. So Young pulled out her scanner and stared at the readings. This is impossible. The atmospheric composition is perfect for dozens of different species. How can one planet support so many different forms of life? Human technology, Dr. Yunji explained. We learned long ago that cooperation is more powerful than competition. Every species we work with teaches us something new. In return, we share what we have learned from others. They walked along a path made of smooth crystal that hummed with soft music as they stepped on it. Around them, beings from across the galaxy worked together on projects that seemed to blend science and art. A group of crystalline engineers were building something that looked like a flower made of starlight. Zephyrian warriors were teaching human children how to fly using personal gravity devices. Look there, Wujin whispered, pointing to a workshop where several species were working on a massive machine. Captain Dong Hyen noticed his interest. You have good eyes. That is a stellar engineering project. We are learning to move entire star systems. Move stars? Hey, one gasped. When the Devourers come, some civilizations will need to evacuate their home systems. We are developing the technology to relocate their stars to safer regions of the galaxy. They continued walking and came to a vast amphitheater carved into the side of a floating mountain. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species sat in the audience listening to a presentation. On the stage, a human scientist was showing holographic displays of defensive technologies. This is our daily briefing, Admiral Beoram explained. Everyone who works with us learns about our progress in preparing for the Devourers. Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. Taman watched as the presenter demonstrated a weapon that could destroy entire fleets with a single shot. But instead of cheering, the audience asked questions about how to minimize casualties and protect civilian populations. Your people think very differently, he observed. We learn from our mistakes, Dr. Yunji said sadly. 50,000 years ago, when the Devourers first came, humanity was much like your current galactic civilizations. We fought among ourselves, competed for resources, built weapons to dominate our neighbors. What changed you? Survival, Captain Dong Hyen answered. When faced with extinction, we had to choose between dying alone or living together. Those who chose cooperation survived. Those who kept fighting each other did not. They visited more areas of the planet. In one location, Taman saw former Zephyrian warriors working peacefully alongside soldiers from species that had been their traditional enemies. In another, Trade Federation merchants were freely sharing their most valuable commercial secrets with competitors. How do you convince people to give up their old ways? So Young asked. A familiar voice answered her. You show them something better. They turned to see Captain J. Hyen approaching. He wore the uniform of a human fleet officer, but his facial features and body structure were clearly Zephyrian. Captain J. Hyen was once Commander J. Hyen of the Zephyrian 7th Fleet, Admiral Beoram said. He led the most aggressive military. unit in their empire. I came here 2 decades ago to conquer this system, Jaehyun admitted. I brought 12 battleships and 5,000 warriors. We were convinced that humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated. What happened? Taemin asked. They invited us to dinner, Jaehyun said with a laugh. Instead of fighting our ships, they sent a small transport with an invitation to visit their world. My warriors thought it was a trap, but I was curious. He gestured toward the peaceful city around them. They showed us this. A civilization where strength was used to protect rather than conquer, where technology was shared instead of hoarded, where former enemies worked together to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone. It sounds too good to be true, Haewon said suspiciously. I thought so too, Jaehyun replied. So I spent months looking for the catch, the hidden agenda, the secret plan to enslave us. I found nothing. The humans genuinely wanted to help us become better than we were. Dr. Yoonji led them to a quiet garden where they could sit and talk privately. Strange flowers around them glowed with soft light, and the air smelled like spring. Rain, I know this is difficult to accept, she said. Your civilizations have spent thousands of years believing that conflict is natural, that competition is necessary, that someone must always win and someone must always lose. Are you saying that is wrong? Taemin asked. I'm saying there is another way. Humans discovered it through necessity, but it can be learned by choice. She activated a small device that projected images in the air between them. The first image showed the galaxy as it was now, with different species controlling separate territories, trade routes guarded by military fleets, and constant border disputes. This is your current galaxy, Dr. Yoonji said. Approximately 43 major civilizations, each trying to expand their influence while preventing others from doing the same. Total population, roughly 800 billion beings. The image changed to show the same galaxy, but now the borders were gone. Different species mixed freely, ships moved without military escorts, and every system glowed with the light of advanced technology. This is what we are building together. No territorial boundaries, no trade restrictions, no military conflicts. Knowledge and resources shared freely among all species. Estimated population capacity, over 50 trillion beings. That is impossible, Wu Jin protested. Different species have different needs, different goals. They cannot all live in harmony. Different needs can complement each other, Captain Dong Hyen said, joining them in the garden. Crystalline beings are excellent at energy management. Zephyrians are natural explorers and defenders. Your people are gifted cartographers and navigators. Trade Federation species understand logistics and resource distribution. Each species contributes their strengths, Admiral B.O. Ram added. Together we become far more powerful than the sum of our parts. Taemin felt overwhelmed. Everything he had believed about galactic civilization was being challenged. But what about the governments back home? The military leaders, the corporate interests, the politicians who benefit from the current system? That is the real challenge, Dr. Yoonji admitted. Many people in power will resist change because they fear losing their advantages. But when the Devourers arrive, old power structures will not matter. We will either stand together or fall separately. She showed them one final image. It was a recording from 50,000 years ago, showing what happened to civilizations that tried to fight the Devourers alone. Entire star systems were consumed, leaving nothing but empty space. This is what we are trying to prevent, she said quietly. But we cannot force cooperation. Each civilization, each individual, must choose for themselves. Admiral Bahram stood up. Commander Taemin, you and your crew now face the same choice that everyone else has faced. You can return to your people and try to convince them to work. With us, you can stay here and help us prepare for what is coming. Or you can ask us to remove these memories and go back to your old life. Taemin looked at his crew. Their faces showed the same mixture of wonder and fear that he felt. Everything they had seen was amazing, but it meant their entire understanding of the galaxy was wrong. How long do we have to decide? He asked. Take all the time you need. Admiral Bo-Ram replied. But remember, the Devourers are not waiting for us to be ready. Taemin stood in the communication center of the human ship, his hand hovering over the transmit button. After 3 days of discussion with his crew, they had made their decision. But first he had one request. Admiral Bo-Ram, I want to send a message to my people before we begin. They deserve to know what is coming, the Admiral nodded. Of course, but remember, once you send that message, there is no going back. The galaxy will know that humans exist and that we have been watching them. I understand. Taemin activated the long-range transmitter. For the first time in 200 years, a signal would be sent from human space to the rest of the galaxy. He took a deep breath and began speaking. This is Commander Taemin of the Galactic Institute. I am transmitting from human territory with a message for all civilizations. The humans are real, they are peaceful, and they need our help to save the galaxy from a threat that will arrive in less than 50 years. He paused, knowing that his words were traveling across space to every major world in known civilization. I have seen what they have built. Former enemies working together, technology shared freely, resources used to help all species instead of enriching a few. It is not perfect, but it is better than what we have now, and it may be our only chance to survive what is coming. Behind him, Admiral Bo-Ram was preparing for the next phase of their plan. Throughout human space, massive fleets were receiving orders to decloak and reveal themselves. For 2 centuries, human ships had been positioned near every major civilization, watching and protecting without being seen. The silence ends now, Taemin continued. In the next few hours, you will see human ships near your worlds. They are not invaders. They are protectors who have been guarding us while we were not ready to protect ourselves. So Young touched his shoulder. The response signals are coming in. Across the galaxy, communication centers were exploding with activity. Government leaders were demanding answers. Military commanders were scrambling to respond to the appearance of unknown fleets. Scientists were analyzing the new signals with excitement and fear on the Velthari homeworld. Admiral Kyung-soo sat in his office, watching the reports flood in. Human ships had appeared in orbit around Velthara, but they made no aggressive moves. Instead, they were broadcasting the same message in the Velthari language. Greetings from humanity. We come in peace and friendship. We have much to discuss about our shared future. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the Zephyrian capital world, the Empress stared at the human vessels that had materialized near her planet. The ships were larger and more advanced than anything in her fleet, but they held position and waited patiently for a response. In the Trade Federation headquarters, corporate leaders were analyzing the economic implications of contact with a civilization that apparently had no need for money or competition. Some saw opportunity. Others saw the end of their way of life. Captain Dong Hyen joined Taemin at the communication station. The first responses are coming in. Most governments are demanding that we withdraw our ships immediately. Expected, Admiral Bo-Ram said calmly. Fear is always the first reaction to change. But look at this, Dr. Yunji added, monitoring other channels. Scientists and explorers from dozens of worlds are trying to establish direct communication with our ships. Curiosity is stronger than fear for many people. On the main display, they could see status reports from human fleets throughout the galaxy. Each group was following the same protocol: remain visible but non-threatening, respond to all communication attempts, offer to share non-military technology as a gesture of goodwill. The Crystalline Confederacy is requesting a formal diplomatic meeting, Captain J. Hyen reported. Their Science Council wants to examine our energy manipulation techniques. Good, Admiral Bo-Ram replied. Dr. Yunji, prepare a team to meet. With them, make sure they understand this is about cooperation, not conquest. Wujin was monitoring the technical responses. Several civilizations are asking about our cloaking technology. They want to know how we stayed hidden for so long. We will share everything that does not compromise our defensive preparations, the Admiral decided. Trust must begin with transparency. As the hours passed, the initial panic began to give way to cautious interest. The human ships made no demands, issued no ultimatums, and took no aggressive actions. Instead, they simply waited and answered questions. HFY was tracking the movement of non-human fleets. Some military forces are moving to surround our ships, but others are standing down. It looks like the galaxy is split between those who see us as a threat and those who see us as an opportunity. That will change when they learn about the Devourers. So, Young said grimly. Admiral Biram activated the main communication system. Her voice would now be broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. People of the galactic community, I am Admiral Biram of the Human Defense Fleet. We reveal ourselves today not by choice but by necessity. Our long-range sensors have detected the return of an ancient enemy that threatens all life in this galaxy. She displayed the same images that Taemin and his crew had seen, showing the approaching Devourer fleet. 50,000 years ago, these beings consumed entire civilizations. They will arrive at our galaxy's outer systems in approximately 47 years. No single species can stand against them. Only by working together do we have a chance to survive. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every communication channel in the galaxy lit up with questions, demands for proof, and arguments about what should be done. On Velthera, Admiral Kyung-soo was in an emergency meeting with the Planetary Council. If this is true, one council member said, then everything changes. Our old conflicts become meaningless. But how do we know they are telling the truth? Another asked. This could be an elaborate deception to make us submit to human authority. Similar debates were happening on every world. But gradually a pattern emerged. The younger generation of leaders, the scientists, and the explorers were more willing to consider cooperation. The older political and military establishments were more resistant to change. Tae-min watched the responses with growing hope and concern. Some civilizations are already agreeing to send diplomatic teams. Others are threatening to attack any human ship that approaches their territory. Change is never easy, Admiral Biram said. But we have something our ancestors did not have. When the Devourers first came, what is that? Time to prepare and knowledge of what works. We know that cooperation defeats competition. We know that shared strength is greater than individual power. And we know that the choice is simple, evolve or die. Captain Donghayan brought exciting news. The Altarian Republic has agreed to a full technology exchange. They want to begin joint research on defensive systems immediately. The Healer Coalition is offering to establish medical stations throughout human space, Dr. Yunji added. They want to study our life extension techniques. But there was bad news too. The Dominion Alliance is mobilizing their war fleets, HFY reported. They are demanding that we surrender our advanced technology or face military action. Admiral Biram sighed. Some will choose cooperation. Others will choose conflict. We must be ready for both. Over the following weeks, the galaxy began to transform. New alliances formed between species that had never trusted each other. Research stations were established to study the Devourer threat. Trade routes were redesigned to support mutual aid, rather than competitive advantage, but there was also resistance. Several military coalitions formed to oppose human influence. Some civilizations chose isolation, refusing all contact with the new galactic community. Tae-min found himself at the center of it all, serving as humanity's first official ambassador to the galactic community. His small research mission had become the catalyst for the greatest change in galactic history. Do you think we will be ready in time? So Young asked him one day as they watched the construction of massive defense platforms around key star systems. Tae-min looked out at the mixed crews of humans and aliens working together, building something that no single species could have imagined. I do not know if we will be ready, he replied. But I know we have a chance now. And sometimes a chance is all you need to change everything. The galaxy was no longer the same. The maps had been redrawn, not with new borders, but with new connections. And for the first time in 50,000 years, when the darkness came from beyond the stars, it would find the galaxy united and waiting.